On this episode of Old Joe's Reminiscence, Gene Roddenberry tries once again. This time, he's given the go-ahead for a 13-episode series. Wait, what? If you've been following along in my reviews, you know that Star Trek's Gene Roddenberry wrote a pilot for CBS that was almost certain to go series. That is, until the Eye realized the success of Planet of the Apes, and they adapted that into a series. ABC took a stab with their failed follow-up pilot. Then the Alphabet Network retooled it and tried once again without Gene. And again, no sale. Gene had to swallow his pride when he took his next project to the Peacock Network. Like ABC, NBC was also airing 4 movies each week, not including the popular NBC Sunday mystery movie rotating Columbo, McCloud, and others. NBC had endured a rocky relationship with Gene during Star Trek, but the network suits put their past differences aside and they gave the go-ahead. The Questor tapes pilot went forward. In fact, NBC thought that the Questor tapes was good enough to justify ordering a 13-episode series before the pilot film aired. Then, Gene discovered that NBC planned to schedule them for Friday at 10. Well, that time slot was what many believed had put the final nail in Star Trek's proverbial coffin in 1969. It certainly couldn't have been weak episodes. I mean, The Children Shall Lead, Spock's Brain. Anyway, that and several other creative differences had Roddenberry walking away from the project, and co-writer Gene Coon died before the pilot could even air. With a total of 12 episodes written and ready for filming, NBC canceled the Questor tapes before production even got started. NBC still ran the Questor tapes pilot on their NBC Wednesday Night at the Movies on January 23, 1974. The film was nominated for a Hugo Award. I can't say that I've seen it. Maybe I did long ago, and I just don't remember. But either way, it sounds pretty good so far. Let's get the spoiler warning out of the way and fast forward into the Questor tapes.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
The establishing shot, filmed from a helicopter, appears to be a college campus. That's Caltech, the California Institute of Technology at Pasadena. Inside, a man who looks very familiar to me enters. I remember him from an episode of Search that I reviewed last summer.
John Vernon was born on February 24, 1932 in Saskatchewan, Canada. He attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. He made hundreds of appearances in film and on television beginning in 1956. The tall 6-foot 2-inch Vernon was a favorite to play authority figures. In his later years, Vernon did voice work for animated productions. John Vernon died at the age of 72 on February 1, 2005.
He's Jeffrey Darrow. He gazes intently at a closed-circuit television depiction of what appears to be an operating room. He looks rather sinister, but he does have an access card. And when he inserts that card into a slot, presses his thumb on a thumb reader, the door opens to a locker room. He observes the activity going on behind the glass. We cut to Jerry Robinson, played by Mike Farrell, B.J. Honeycutt from MASH.
Mike Farrell was born on February 6, 1939. Growing up, he went to school with Natalie Wood and Ricky Nelson. His father died when Mike was just 17. When he was 18, Mike joined the Marines, serving for 2 years. He came home and attended UCLA. He also studied acting at the Jeff Corey Workshop. Mike spent the first few years of his career playing bit parts until he was cast as the recurring character of Scott Banning on the NBC soap opera Days of Our Lives. It was back to guest appearances until he was brought in as Captain B.J. Honeycutt, a replacement surgeon to fill in when Wayne Rogers left the CBS smash hit MASH. He also played a doctor in 96 episodes of Providence. Mike is an outspoken human and animal rights activist. Mike Farrell is 85 years old.
Just think, if he'd signed to do this series in 1974, MASH might have had a whole different dynamic without him. Darrow's chatting with Dr. Chen, who's played by James Shigeta.
James Shigeta was born on June 17, 1929 in Honolulu. He majored in English at New York University. He also speaks fluent Japanese, French, and Italian. James enlisted in the Marine Corps at the beginning of the Korean War. His entertainment career started when he won first place as a singer on Ted Mack's Amateur Hour. He played Vegas and did the nightclub tour. He played several romantic leading roles, including being cast opposite Nancy Kwan in the 1961 film Flower Drum Song. James Shigeta continued to play numerous television and movie roles whenever the need arose for someone to portray an Asian until shortly before his death at the age of 85 on July 28, 2014.
I've seen him in a few shows, including as Takagi in the 1988 film Die Hard. They're discussing how an eye will look and function. Then a PA announcement draws Mr. Darrow's attention. He goes through another set of doors to a sort of control room. That's no human that's outstretched on the table. Is that a coiled telephone handset cord in there? The unmistakable clipped delivery style of Majel Barrett comes over the PA.
Respiration simulation holding at 21. Epidermal reading 98.6.
As we know, Gene put her in all of his productions. Here she's playing Dr. Bradley. When the android's chest moves, simulating breaths, Jerry is a bit startled. Dr. Bradley loads a stack of programming tapes, which reminds me of a spindle of CDs or DVDs, if they were Laserdisc size. Robinson shuts down the programming, claiming that they're using the wrong tapes. Jerry seemed to be quite adamant. Everybody else in the room seems to think that they should continue, and they do.
Getting brainwave readings.
The android seems to be working.
Brainwave activity 0. We're getting no brainwaves at all.
No, it's not working. Now there's no option. They'll have to use the Veslovic tape that Jerry Robinson wanted to use in the first place. Once that tape is spooled up and running, the android convulses a bit. Some of the dialogue was entirely covered up by synth sounds in this scene. Once the tape runs off its spool, nothing. Questor is deemed a failure. Everyone except Robinson gathers for a meeting. They're calling it a night. Of course, when they file out, we just know something's going to happen. The door closes behind the last person to go, and the android's eyes instantly pop open. The table tilts upright, and the android breaks free of its restraints. The android's stiff, jerky movements remind me of Frankenstein's monster. We cut to Jeffrey Darrow going over Jerry Robinson's credentials with a fine-tooth comb. Meanwhile, the android is walking around and accessing computers. In a series of back and forth cuts, we follow the android as it creates facial features, ears, a mouth, and hair for itself. Darrow confines Robinson to his quarters, and he stations a guard. When we cut back to the android, he's already dressed and putting on a sports coat. I'm a bit uncomfortable referring to the android as it. I think it makes much more sense to say he, since the android does have the appearance of a human male. Making his escape, he strolls right past security. He's inside the Veslovic archives when a woman discovers his intrusion. We find out that she's Allison Sample, who's played by soap opera regular Ellen Weston. When she asks his name, he says Questor. Questor is being played by Robert Foxworth.
Robert Foxworth was born in Houston, Texas on November 1, 1941. After graduating from Lamar High School in Houston, Robert apprenticed at Houston's Alley Theater. His first stage appearance was in 1950. He spent 3 seasons in front of Washington, D.C. audiences before moving to New York. He won a Theatre World Award while performing off-Broadway, and he made his Broadway debut in 1969. Then it was off to Hollywood. After a December 1969 appearance on an episode of the CBS Playhouse, Robert was cast as the lead character in 23 episodes of a CBS series, Men at Law. Following that series' cancellation, Robert played guest roles in numerous series and films. Somewhere along the line he met and fell in love with actress Elizabeth Montgomery. The two were married at the time of her death. He was approached to play JR on Dallas, but he turned it down. He played the recurring character Chase Joe Bertie in the CBS drama Falcon Crest. Later in his career, Robert has done voiceover work, particularly as the voice of Ratchet in the Transformers franchise. Robert Foxworth is 82 years old.
He crosses the campus, ending up at the residence hall where Jerry Robinson is under guard. Using his superior android strength, Questor removes the bars from the window. Finding Robinson asleep, Questor clamps a hand over Jerry's mouth. Jerry eventually stops struggling. I don't know how I would react to that. When a guard enters the room, Questor bends the guard's rifle in half. Then he easily chokes that guy out. He claims that the method he used will keep the man out for about an hour. I hope he's got a passport because Questor insists that Jerry accompany him to London. Jerry and Questor discuss why the android is so compelled to locate his creator. Well, that's pure Gene Roddenberry. I'm thinking Nomad, V'ger, Commander Data being called to find Dr. Soong. The conversation turns to how they're going to pay for 2 tickets to London, which I'm guessing would cost about $1,000 back then. Questor figures they'll just simply charge them to Jerry's credit cards. Robert Foxworth's jerky movements are reminding me of Jeff Bridges in Starman. Jerry tries to get out of the car, but Questor stops him. Questor puts his hand on Jerry and says that he can't let him go. Jerry asks if Questor would kill him. That is the next logical step. With the knowledge that Questor isn't programmed to kill, Jerry just gets out of the car. He takes a few steps before turning back. We fast forward to Jerry talking to a stewardess in mid-flight. There aren't many people flying to London, as their flight's less than half full. I guess a full flight would have meant hiring a lot more extras. This is when Jerry decides to bring up the passport issue. Questor says that he has a plan. Now this I've got to see. A stewardess played by Edie Gerard in her only screen role remarks on how fast Questor is going through their reading material. This kicks off an awkward exchange which Jerry interrupts by ordering a drink. And when she asks Questor if he'd like one, his answer is strange enough to cause the woman to roll her eyes as she's walking away. We cut briefly to Project Questor, where they're trying to figure out what happened to their android. On the ground in London, our travelers are detained. No passports, no luggage. Questor pulls a door from the wall and they escape. Back at Project Questor, Jeffrey Darrow is speaking from behind a podium. He introduces Veslovic's secretary, and she details her encounter with Questor the night before. While she's speaking, Scotland Yard calls with news of their subjects. In London, the fugitives exit the underground, and Questor notices a member of the Metropolitan Police examining a flyer. It has Jerry's photograph on it. They walk in the other direction where they see another Bobby coming. Then they duck into an alley, and Questor says that he'd better go it alone. Jerry talks the android out of that. Then a Bobby blows his whistle and begins a foot pursuit. When the two step into a building with the number 221 painted on the awning, my first thought was, are they on Baker Street? Inside, I had to chuckle when Questor went off in another direction right after Jerry told him to stay close to me. Questor is intrigued by the gambling tables. Here comes the first time roller winning lots of money in a gambling house trope. Questor awkwardly places bets, and he wins until the table substitutes some loaded dice. Now what? Questor immediately notices the difference, and he alters the dice shape to produce his desired throw, and he wins again, but they decide to cash out. Good thing. They hire a cab to deliver them to a massive estate in the countryside where they give a coded message at the door. The butler excuses himself and he returns straight away with Lady Helena Trimble, played by Dana Winter.
Dana Winter was born Dagmar Winter in Berlin on June 8, 1931. Her father was a surgeon, so Dagmar started to follow in his footsteps. While a pre-med student in South Africa, she became interested in theater. She moved to England and started out on stage in London, where an American agent snatched her up. After a stint in New York, she accepted a contract with 20th Century Fox. Out of her more than 100 screen appearances, she is probably best remembered as Cindy Bakersfield, the neglected wife of Burt Lancaster's character in the 1970 blockbuster Airport. Dana Winter died on May 5, 2011.
Lady Helena vehemently denies knowing Veslovic. She's about to have them escorted out when Questor begins spewing some dark secrets of improprieties. And at this, Helena informs the butler that the gentleman will be staying the night. Randolph, the butler, is played by Gerald Peters, who was known for playing butlers and other domestic help. After the two change clothes and freshen up a bit, Questor presses Jerry to seduce Lady Helena. Jerry is more of a brainy geek than a ladies' man. Alone with a woman, he becomes a bumbling fool. When Jerry backs out, Helena goes to Questor, and when she asks if he's going to pick up where Jerry left off, his answer reminds me of Next Generation's Data with Tasha Yar. The next morning, Jerry makes a fool of himself when he starts pounding on Lady Helena's door, demanding to see Questor. I'm surprised that Mueller let him by. After another awkward exchange, Helena takes Jerry to a wine cellar. Now, anyone who's watched my earlier reviews will remember that evil deeds often occur in wine cellars. Lady Helena opens a secret passage. Is it a trap? Trust me, she says. Jerry finds Questor in Veslovic's information center. Considering the company Veslovic kept and the information he's seeing, Jerry begins to distrust Veslovic's motives for creating Questor. Downtrodden, Jerry goes back to his room and he grabs a phone where he places a call to Jeffrey Darrow. Meanwhile, Questor has failed to find his creator. He says he will cease to function in 3 days. Before he leaves the Trimble estate, he records a message for Jerry. Jerry tracks Questor down in a park. Children are playing nearby. Jerry wants to know what's going to happen in 3 days.
Without my creator, I have no purpose, my friend. He provided me with extinction in that event.
Questor sees the image of Noah's Ark in a nearby playground, and it triggers a clue. When they're about to head out, they're ambushed.
Hold right there.
It's an all-out assault.
Stop him!
Nice touch using machine guns with children playing nearby. Frankly, I was expecting Questor to walk away unharmed, figuring he'd take a licking and keep on ticking. I guess he's no Timex. Then we're back in Pasadena. They pronounce Questor clinically dead. They also conclude that there's no way that it will overload and explode. Robinson says he'll be back in 3 days, if there's something left to come back to. Darrow wants to know Jerry's terms to stay. There's an odd cut straight to Jerry about to give up. Questor's hand moves. We cut to Darrow lighting up a smoke. He turns on a closed circuit monitor and he sees Questor telling Jerry how to operate, Spock's brain style. Together, they find the nuclear device inside him. Only Veslovic can remove or disable it, though. Darrow hurries to the lab and he confronts them. I'm not sure what he intends to accomplish. He wants to see Robinson alone, where he gives Jerry a radio transmitter to place inside the android. We cut to a Learjet taking off with Questor piloting. They are heading to biblical Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark is believed to have landed, and that's where they'll find Veslovic. They land the Learjet on a deserted runway, and they jump into a Jeep that Lady Helena has arranged to be waiting for them. Jeffrey Darrow is hot on their heels, though. He jumps out of the back seat of a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star that just landed. He immediately climbs into a Jeep that's waiting there. Meanwhile, Questor suggests that Jerry take shelter among the rocks. Now, I'm no physicist, but I don't think it would make much difference in the event of a nuclear blast. Darrow has a truckload of UN troops at his disposal. I'm surprised that they sprang for so many extras who don't do very much. I'd have cut that part out. Questor now knows exactly where Veslovic is, and he starts running to get there in time. He has less than 30 minutes left. Darrow tells the troops to move back to 20 miles. See, what use was it to have them there in the first place if they're just going to move back? A lot of what's happening at this point makes no sense whatsoever to me. Like Darrow, he's going up into the hills knowing that there's a nuclear device about to blow up there. Questor pushes on a heavy boulder, which opens a secret portal in the side of the mountain. The two enter a long cylindrical tunnel, and the portal closes behind them. Darrow has been watching all of this. He tries to push on that boulder, as he'd seen the android do, but he finds it too heavy to move. Time is almost up, so he crouches down behind the boulder. And again, would it have made a difference? We see Questor standing in a beam of energy. He's safe now. I also expected the beam to download a software update to fix him. Apparently, they'd need him to remain flawed for the series to happen. And that's also why he needs Jerry. They finally meet Veslovic, who's played by Lou Ayres.
Lou Ayres was born in Minneapolis on December 28, 1908. While growing up in California, young Lou had ambitions of being a doctor. He dropped out of college and started playing banjo with a band. A talent scout noticed him and landed Lou an uncredited bit part in the 1929 film, The Sophomore. His first credited role was in 1929's The Kiss, starring Greta Garbo, but the part that got him noticed was as Paul in the 1930 epic, All Quiet on the Western Front. He is best known for playing the title role in a series of Dr. Kildare films beginning in 1938 and a radio show revival of the character. He was shunned by moviegoers after declaring himself a conscientious objector when he was drafted in 1942. He eventually served as a medic in the South Pacific. After the war, he struggled to find a good role until his portrayal of Dr. Robert Richardson in the 1948 film, Johnny Belinda. Lou was nominated for Best Actor, and his co-star Jane Wyman won the Oscar for Best Actress for their performances in that film. Ayres was up for reprising his role as Dr. Kildare on television, but the project was scrapped when he insisted there be no cigarette sponsors. He continued to work in television, doing guest appearances into the 1990s. Lou Ayres died on December 30, 1996 at the age of 88.
We learn that Veslovic is one of many androids who have walked among man over many millennia. Robinson is the first human to ever set foot inside this hideaway. Meanwhile, outside, Darrow has found something to use to move that boulder. Back inside, they explained to Veslovic that the tape was damaged, that Questor's programming is incomplete. Then Robinson will need to teach Questor everything that was missing. Veslovic is shut down. Questor knows that Darrow is watching them. Darrow seems to resent the android's meddling in human affairs. The Questor says they only make suggestions. Ultimately, humans are always in control. Darrow points out that there's only one slab left. Questor claims that his lifespan is 200 years. If we make it that long without destroying each other, his kind will no longer be needed. Darrow seems to think that man will never make it. When Jerry starts to explain about the tracking device, Questor shows it to them and says he shut it off when they got there. Darrow takes it. Now what's he going to do? We cut to Darrow back with the military commander. Darrow says the android has nuclear devices, and then he gives the tracking frequency. They scramble a couple of Air Force F-4 Phantoms. Meanwhile, Darrow takes a Jeep out to the Learjet, and he takes off. Is he going to forfeit his own life to save the android? I didn't think he'd be the kind to self-sacrifice. More jets are inbound. As the fighters turn to engage the Learjet, Questor and Jerry Robinson emerge from the mountain. One of the Air Force F-4s fires an air-to-air missile, bringing down the Learjet flown by Jeffrey Darrow. I don't remember seeing Questor tapes before, and I liked it for the most part. There were some slow points, but I was satisfied with the storyline, even though it took a few wild turns. My thoughts on adapting it to a series: instead of killing Darrow, they could have escaped, and Darrow would be forced to track them down, kind of like Jack McGee went after the Hulk, or George Fox tracked Starman, or even Lieutenant Gerard after Dr. Richard Kimball on The Fugitive. But I'm sure they would have made it work out somehow, with the two stars fixing something every week. It's too bad that Gene Roddenberry ended up walking away from this. IMDb lists a few tidbits. A total of 12 scripts were written before Gene abandoned the project. Some believe that Questor was a predecessor to Star Trek's Commander Data, and I had mentioned how I was reminded of Data's sex scene with Tasha Yar. Apparently, a similar scene had been written for Questor and Lady Helena, but it was cut by censors. Creative differences? Well, apparently NBC wanted the Genes to eliminate the Jerry Robinson character altogether. It's said that NBC also intended to feature weekly guest stars as love interests for Questor. That's very odd, since they'd put the kibosh on Questor having sex with Lady Helena in the pilot, as I just mentioned. There's also a note that says Gene wanted to cast Leonard Nimoy as Questor. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that one. Watching the ending credits, I noticed that Star Trek's Walter Koenig was in this film. I don't recall seeing him, unless Walter was the short man with a black mustache that stood in Darrow's doorway for a few seconds. I thought Darrow called him Phillips, but there was no Phillips in the credits. Well, I think this went a little long, but there was a lot to cover. I hope you enjoyed it. And now, where to go from here? The award-winning 1969 film Marooned might be next, if I can find a copy. As an award-winning theatrical release, I'm concerned that any review that I do may be blocked. Well, we'll see, I guess. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Activate the notification bell so you'll know when to join me again for whatever happens to come up next. on Old Joe's Reminiscence.